So thank you so much for coming. First off, who of the audience owns a DSLR or mirrorless camera? Anyone? There was some. Okay. When have you last used it? When did you? Well, you used it today. When did you last go out and take photos with your camera? Days? 5 weeks? 5 days. Okay, that's not too long ago. That's good. So then we already have a good report. So I don't know who was there for the talk before mine. That was very much about how the world gets virtual and artificial. I will be talking about why that might be true, but might not be the greatest thing in the world. And about myself, I used to be a professional photographer myself before joining Nikon. And now I take care of all professional interests and strategies at Nikon Europe BV, but also the educational. So I'm going from the professional photographers, the people who know what they're doing, to the people who would like to know what they're doing. I want to, well, that's not working. Well, I'll just read to you what's there. So I want to tell you a little bit, 3 things. I want to tell you about Nikon being a champion of image creation, both for stills and video. I want to tell you about that it's in Nikon's DNA to have products that have quality at the forefront, and that's both image quality and build quality, and that as a key factor in sustainable practice and sustainable product development. And I want to show you how high quality photography, I don't know where, creates mindfulness about what you're doing. So it's not about, or it's actually not about the person standing somewhere taking a photo of themselves standing in front of a mountain just to show it to their friends and then walk on, but it's more about really living the moment of being in that space and then creating something that has not been there in the world before. A little bit about Nikon. For a high-tech company, we're already quite old. So Nikon was founded in 1917. And we just had a really quite exciting anniversary this year. So Nikon has been building lenses for 90 years now. And this year we have had our 120 millionth lens built and sold. So that is quite an anniversary in and of itself. This is a little bit about our commitment. So we're not only building cameras, but we're also creating spaces where we celebrate image creation, both video and photo. So in April, we had the Nikon Film Festival, which is a short film festival that we have in Paris, and that was the 14th time. It's the largest cinema in Europe, 2,600 places, and it's always sold out. And if you Google Nikon Film Festival, you can still access that website and access all the films that were the winning films, but also all of the entries, and I highly recommend that. We also have another film festival that we sponsor in Stockholm. It's a little smaller. We also sponsor the Comedy Wildlife Awards, which I also highly recommend. If you're ever feeling down, go check out that website. The images there are not only interesting, but they always bring a smile on your face. For a long time, we have been supporting environmental photography, and we also support Nikon Female Facets, which is a program where we try to encourage female photographers in professional photography, as there is still a huge gap in gender there. And this is how Nikon gets involved. But very, very close to our hearts is the Nikon Photo Contest. And we have been running this contest since 1969. And it's a contest that provides opportunities for professional and amateur photographers around the world to engage with one another. So this is not about just being all by yourself and alone, but it's really to be in touch with other photographers and get in an engagement. And our president said the following words: even as we pursue the possibilities imaging offers, our objective is to share new forms of value afforded by images with as many people as possible. We hope you will see the contest as an opportunity to express your own inner creative power through imaging and offer others the strength to move forward so that we all meet the future together. And I think that ties in quite interestingly with the presentation before mine about how there are different ways that we can think how we can be together in the future and live in that future. And I would like to share a few images that's from last year's contest. And I just want to show how imaging can offer these glimpses into the world. And this is the winner. It's from the Philippines. photographer is called Austin Garcia. It's called Tears in the Rain. And the story behind this is, and I quote him, "During the well-known festival here in Angoro called the Gigantes Festival, I was drawn to this subject wherein a child was clinging tightly to his father while around the child was chaos caused by the celebration of the festival. Water was splashing everywhere, and in this particular scene, you can see the amount of water being thrown into the crowd." So I assume nobody has ever been to that festival, I would guess. And still, whenever you take a look at this, this is a really short moment in time, and it might only have affected the photographer, maybe the family, they might not even notice he was there. But also, we are sharing this moment now with this little child, which maybe when they grow up, they will still remember that this happened, and it might have affected them in some way. And we, through photography, get an idea of that happening around the world. There's another winner from the same category, and this is very emotional image also to me personally. It's called She Remembers by Michael Snyder. And I will also read that to you. This is also the quote from the photographer when he handed this in. "My wife's mother touches her daughter's face at the moment she recognized her. Diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, her memory had all but faded with our visits. On this night, as soon as my wife sat down next to her, she called out my wife's name, then looked at me taking the photo, then forgot who my wife was. Her mother passed away this morning at 3 a.m., October 31st, 2022. And I mean, this is a picture that is as personal as it gets. It's only a picture between the people in the picture and the photographer, yet this story happens somewhere in the world every day. So people can relate to this, and this gives, let's say, testimony to human experience in probably a way that many other ways couldn't. So this is, very strong, and we as Nikon try to promote these kinds of communications. And lastly, this is a Special Encouragement Award winner, Ahmet Fatih Sönmez, hot water. In eastern Turkey, the winter months are quite harsh. People living in villages come to the area where the hot water comes out to comfort their animals, clean and care for them. While doing this, they show their love for them. And again, this is like somewhere else, somewhere in the world. Probably nobody has been there who is present here. And yet we see this human experience in the image. We see the relationship between the person and the horse. We see there's other stories happening around in the image. There's other people. There's somebody standing outside. And only by this, we can learn about the world. We can learn how important it is to be in this world, and we can imagine how it would be to be the person not in the image, but taking that image. There's another, and then I will be a little quicker about that one, but there's another quite interesting award that we have that's called the Small World Award. Has anyone ever seen that? We do quite a bit of PR on that. This is the Nikon Small World competition and began in 1975 as a means to recognize and applaud the efforts of those involved with photography through the light microscope. Nikon also builds microscopes. Since then, Small World has become a leading showcase for photomicrographers from the widest array of scientific disciplines. So while the images before I showed you were very human, very direct, very much what you might have experienced in your own life in some form or other, this is a way of showing you the world that you might not have seen in any shape or form. And so this is last year's winner, Hassanain Kambari, and this image is actually an eye of a rodent, so like a hamster's eye, made visible through technical things. And again, this is something that if you haven't seen that before, you wouldn't know what it is, but by showcasing these kind of images as form as a contest, Nikon really shows how photography and photography techniques are actually a practice that is sustainable and that keeps human experience sustainable. These are feet from an embryo gecko. And lastly, this image was taken by a photographer who has been doing this since the mid-90s when digital photography just started getting into this. So the practice has been going on for over 25 years, and this photographer has been in the contest for many, many years. So I thought it's really interesting to show that this is also a culture inside of a photographic culture. So I'm telling you this because all of these images, in some form or other, are created with cameras. And these cameras are certainly something that need to be produced. You need to source materials to produce these items, and then these items go out into the world and they have a life of their own. And Nikon specifically has really been known for creating products that hold a long time. And one of the cooperations that we're most proud with is that Nikon has been with NASA since 1971. Our cameras are currently flying above us in the International Space Station, and our cameras are being prepared to also join NASA for their next manned moon mission. So these cameras are, if they're good enough for space, they're probably also good enough for real life. And this is also one campaign for the Nikon F3, which is from 1980. And this camera has been produced and sold between 1980 and 2002. So imagine you buy a car in 1980 and the same car gets produced for 22 years nowadays. So it's something that's probably difficult to imagine. But this camera was produced, this camera was on sale, even though there were two predecessor models on sale for the same time. And this is something that we as a brand really champion, that our products are good for a very long time. And that is sometimes stakeholders don't like it as much as our customers do, or shareholders rather. But this is something that we as a company really embrace. This is another one. This is the actual camera of a photographer that I was really honored to meet. He is a German by the name of Harald Schmidt, which is not the comedian. And this is a true story. He is a crisis photographer, and that was all in the 1980s when these countries were quite difficult and dangerous to travel to. He took the camera to all those places, but he only had to bring it in for repair one time. And this, we feel, is still true until today. We have a lot of ambassadors. Ambassadors are users of our cameras whose work we love and whose work we support. Ambassadors are also people who you cannot apply to become an ambassador. You are an ambassador because we know you as somebody who's been using Nikon for a long time. There's a lot of World Press Photo Award winners in there, and all of those photographers are among the best in the respective fields that they are in. And those fields go from news, sports, advertising, fashion, portrait, you name it. And we are very proud to have those photographers in our roster. And I would like to share a little experience of one of our very acclaimed National Geographic fellow photographers called Thomas Peschak. He is also the founder of Save Our Seas Foundation, and he works in long-term projects where he takes our cameras into the Arctic for half a year or into the jungle of the Amazon River for a 2-year expedition. And I was very lucky to join him on an expedition into the Alps, and I gave him a new camera that he's never used before called the Z9, which is our top-line camera. And this is what he had to say.
I'm a photographer who likes to keep things simple. I'm not a big gearhead. I'm not a gear nerd. So in my cameras, I needed to be this reliable old friend that I really know incredibly well. So when Nikon came to me and said, hey, we would like you to try our new mirrorless camera, I thought, I don't like the sound of that. I love my DSLRs. I have very little interest in going to mirrorless because my previous experience have been very lukewarm. I don't think I can do my job with a mirrorless camera. Sure of themselves, borderline cocky actually, telling me that you are gonna love this camera. This camera will change your life. Those are big words. You might eat them later on. So 3 days ago, I got to work with a Z9 for the very, very first time. I'm the one eating my words now, because literally, that camera is a game changer. It is the best of a DSLR and the best of mirrorless combined in a rugged package. You know, for a person who shot professional DSLRs for as long as he can remember, holding one of these cameras is intuitive. I know instinctively where all the buttons are. It feels the same. There were moments when I thought I was shooting with a D5. It felt familiar, like my old friend. You know,
And you may or may not believe that was not scripted, and we recorded this 11 o'clock at night after a 6-hour hike up a mountain. So obviously he liked the camera. What we're showing here is, I told you a lot the long history of Nikon and how long we have been building the same cameras, but there was a huge change in 2018 when we changed something called the bayonet, which is this device that attaches the lens to the camera body. And even though it was only something where we changed some millimeters here and we changed the diameter there, for our brand it was a big step, because I wouldn't say it would make older cameras obsolete. No, you can still adapt them. But we decided to make our cameras future-proof by making a small change for then the next 100 years. And this is now the new Z lineup. And ever since, in the last 6 years, we have grown that lineup to 9 cameras at the moment, more than 40 lenses that are all inside of this new system. And we have done so successfully, as you can see. I mean, there are some members of the press here. These cameras are award-winning, so they are in the same realm of what we have come from, and we try to really remain at the forefront of the technology. So why is it relevant? Yeah. I will tell you what stands there. I don't know what the problem is. But it is relevant that we still have cameras. It is relevant that we still have huge lenses and a lot of glass. And it's relevant that there is something besides your phone to create images. And this is like the Z-mount lens development. So this is where the lens attaches, and then you have the lens that you can also see attached to those cameras. And they work together with the sensor technology. So where the light rays go through the lenses, the optical, and they meet the sensor, which used to be the film, which might be something else in the future. And those things together work and then create the optimal image quality. And yes, there are phones that can create great images now, but they are often very much supported by the computer that's also inside of that phone. And yes, there's also a computer in a camera, but it also has mechanical parts. And these new cameras have less mechanical parts, which makes them more sustainable because they are less prone to break. So old cameras, they would often say you can have 250,000 shutter counts pushing down the camera. So 250,000 sounds like a lot. Many of them got a lot older than that, but with new cameras, we're taking out all of those moving parts, so the shutter counts is a lot higher than that. Also, we now have very powerful computers inside of the camera, so yes, it is more virtual, so we're taking the best of both worlds. We're taking the processors from the phones, or like the phones, but we are combining those with the optical properties of lenses and of optical constructions. What we also can do now is that we can update the cameras. So when you buy a camera once, for example, the Z9 or Z8, which are quite recent, we have made 3 or 4 major firmware updates, which included new functions that weren't there before. So imagine your car has a function, I don't know, that it can automatically park, and then they bring out a new car that says, well, this can automatically drive. You might need to buy a new car, but with our cameras, we would just firmware update that, and then your cameras have new functions. Therefore, you can hold on to your camera a lot longer. And then lastly, which takes us back to the idea of sending images back to your loved ones, you can still do that with your camera. You can have your camera, you can connect your camera to your phone, send your images directly to your phone, and then send images of that mountain that you climbed to in a way better quality, and then tell them later about the experience about taking that image. Okay, that was the advertising part, but why do we believe that the sustainability is even less about the product, or it's just about as much about the product as it is about you, the people who go out and want to photograph? And it is that now, for everybody who has a camera, everybody's interested in taking videos or photos, you can capture moments and memories in a quality that has never been as good as it is now. And the playing field between the professional and the amateur has never been as close. So everybody can go out and buy a camera that has like high professional capabilities. When you invest in becoming a photographer, we know that the average time when somebody is a hobby photographer, the average time is 14 years inside of the hobby. But we also know that most people who get into photography start because maybe their father, their mother are a photographer, or somebody else in the family gives them a camera first, and they go out and then experience something together as photographers. And this is this creative journey that you embark on is something that lasts a long time and keeps you interested a very long time. Whatever you create when you do something with your heart and when you put some interest in it and some energy, these tokens that you create are worth a lot more than the token that you create in passing. Get out the phone, click, and on you go. No, you wait for the right light, you wait for the right weather. Maybe you pose your subject, maybe you tell your daughter, hey, move your hair out of the face, I want to see your smile. These are all things that you not only experience, but you create, and therefore you create something that is worth more maybe than just the fleeting moment. And then there's also a shift in interest in society in general from online to offline, from digital to analog. And I know it's kind of a little far-fetched since, yes, our cameras are also digital, but the practice of taking photos is still very analog. And so somebody who still enjoys putting a record on a record player and cleaning it up and then starting the music and then putting headphones on and listening in is very akin to the photographer who puts up a tripod, who sees that the lens is correct, maybe puts on a filter, and really embraces the moment for what they do. And lastly, it's about really being present in the moment in a physical space and doing something and improving doing what you're doing. So the more you do it, the better you get, the more you enjoy it, but also maybe the higher the goals are that you set yourself. And this is something where we really are committed to, and this is a new campaign that we started earlier this year, which is called Keep Inspiring, and this is all about empowering the diverse community of people that want to create and to make an impact on their world. And when you look at the images I showed earlier, these are not images that will change the world like in a large scale, but these are still images that might have made a big impact on a community, on a family, or even only on one person. It might have changed their own world. And our history as a brand that has been around for a very long time and has evolved with the image creation community, this is something that we want to continue doing. And I'll leave you with a little bit of a motto for that, and I thank you for your time. And I want you to
Beautiful images. We are all surrounded by an endless stream of beautiful images, real and artificial. Are we saturated, slowly becoming bored of beauty? Keep looking, keep inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel.